me deep. I'm open. Just go get it, baby.
Yeah. Analytics off the chain. All the channels not the same. Jake and Kyle, you know the name. Headliner Nation, we running the game. I'm a headliner.
Yo, what is going on, Headliner Nation? Welcome back into the Fantasy Headliners. Kyle here to continue our talks on wide receivers. It feels like I've been doing a ton of wide receiver content recently, but that's because there's been so much good information to share with all of you. We're breaking down some of those statistics this year and really going into each of them to give you a better look at just the overall picture of each position and why we have to take a look at some guys and maybe forget about others. What are some pieces of information that maybe are not readily available to you that you don't see, that once you do, and we kind of break it down a little bit for you, you say, hey, that's actually really interesting. It should lead me to believe that this guy could be an asset to my fantasy team this year. But just like I showed you in the intro, sometimes you just got to go get it, baby. And that's what these wide receivers do. This video is going to be all about some of the best contested catches for wide receivers in the NFL. Who goes up and gets it? Who brings it down when they've got guys draped all over them? Who is the one that is winning that 50-50 ball? Who's helping out their quarterback the most? That's what we're going to be diving into in this video. And the first guy up is going to wait a second, because I got to remind everybody that you can pre-order your 2022 fantasy football draft guide by us here at the Fantasy Headliners. Go to our website. Actually, if you look right down here, like I see my crotch. If you look down though, you'll see a link to our website, fantasyheadliners.com. You can go there and pre-order your draft guide right now. We're just weeks away from launching it, and when it is available, you are going to get it right away. So make sure that you are preparing for this fantasy season by pre-ordering your guide right now. But now we're going to head to our first player, who's going to be Terry McLaurin. Maybe this one catches you a little off guard. There's going to be a few guys here that I think you're going to look at and be like, wow, didn't really see that one coming. Maybe Terry McLaurin is one of those guys, because last year he led the league in contested targets with 47, in contested catches with 25. His contested catch percentage was 53.2%. So what is potentially changing for Terry McLaurin this year? What makes him better? What makes him worse? So going to talk about a couple of these things, pros and cons, the statistics as we see him. But Terry McLaurin is a guy who just wins down the field. Now, it would be nice for him to have a quarterback that maybe is a little bit more steady, that can get him the ball down the field a little bit more often. That would be great for Terry McLaurin. And who knows, maybe new quarterback Carson Wentz will be that guy. Because there's going to be somebody else coming up on this list here pretty soon that we'll talk about that actually had Carson Wentz as a quarterback last season. So Carson Wentz, when you talk about him and his NFL career, obviously it's been up and down, some good, some bad, some not so great, some in between, but he can get the ball to his wide receivers a majority of the time. I mean, even if you take a look at his numbers from last season, a lot of people are going to be like, yeah, no, Carson Wentz was no good. Carson Wentz really wasn't that bad last year. Could have been a lot worse. So now, instead of having a guy like Taylor Heinicke as your quarterback, like Terry McLaurin did for the majority of last year, he's going to have a guy like Carson Wentz who could potentially push the ball down the field to him. Now, last year, Terry McLaurin wasn't even really close. I mean, let me rephrase that. He was close to the top in deep passing. Now, we talked about, deep passing in a video a few days back, but Terry McLaurin, he had 33 targets that were 20 or more yards down the field. And now, again, contested catch is typically going to be defined as when you make a catch with less than 3 yards. Less than 3 yards of separation is what you're really going to define a contested catch as. So of his 33 targets that were, down the field, he was going down the field, but he was also making plays in those small windows. Now, kind of the con this year for Terry McLaurin is going to be, will they feed him the volume? Will he get the volume that maybe we have seen him get in recent years? Obviously, Washington has looked to get better at the wide receiver position. And I think, as a whole, trying to get better, Washington has been making some decent moves. But they're going to have Jahan Dotson now on the other side of Terry McLaurin, who really will probably end up being that deep threat. Terry McLaurin probably will not end up being that guy down the field anymore. You still got Curtis Samuel there. You've got Diami Brown, who you spent a 3rd-round pick on last year. You've got Antonio Gandy-Golden, who you spent a 4th-round pick on a couple of years ago. And you've got a guy like Cam Sims, who has made his way in and out of the lineup and produced at certain times. But you've still got guys all around. And don't forget, you're going to have Logan Thomas coming back too. So will Terry McLaurin still be the main guy that gets the majority of the volume? My guess would be yes. He will still get a majority of the volume in this offense. But there's going to be some more mouths to feed him now than what there has been his first couple of years in the league. So again, Terry McLaurin, a guy, Carson Wentz, thrown into those tight windows. Terry McLaurin is going to come down with the ball for you more times than not. Contested catches, 25 in the league, number 1 overall last year. We know that we can do it. Now, here's the thing about the next guy. We talked about Jamar Chase in the deep play video. We talked about Tyler Boyd in the slot video. Let's talk about T. Higgins in the contested catches video. Of all of the wide receivers, of all of the weapons for the Cincinnati Bengals, T. Higgins is the best when it comes to contested catches. Now, unfortunately, his contested targets and his contested catches, a little bit too far off. So contested targets, he did have 43 last year, which was 2nd in the league. And he brought down 18 of those, which tied him for 4th, 41.9%. So for T. Higgins, moving forward, for him to be a guy that can go get the football, that is going to be something that is going to help him immensely. Because you are not going to see the type of double teams that Jamar Chase will likely see. So for T. Higgins, if you get yourself in a one-on-one matchup, even though T. Higgins isn't particularly like a burner, like he's not going to burn past guys the way Jamar Chase does, okay? But he's going to fight, and he is going to bring down the ball. So even if for some reason T. Higgins maybe does see like a cornerback one, maybe this is a team that doesn't really doesn't mobilize their cornerbacks a whole lot, keeps them in one space on the field. If that happens, T. Higgins, even if he has a cornerback one, is definitely strong enough to go get the football against those cornerbacks. I think a lot of times in the NFL today, we don't necessarily give that type of wide receiver the same look as we do these other guys that are just huge playmakers. Because cornerback, I mean, listen, it's the NFL, baby. If you're playing cornerback in the NFL, more than likely you're pretty decent at it, right? So for some of these guys that are like lockdown corners, if you get yourself in a position where I'm talking about a wide receiver versus a really, really good cornerback, if you don't have all the moves to really beat that guy, like legit beat him, then you've got to be big, you got to be strong, you got to be aggressive, and you got to be willing to fight with that cornerback. And you've heard me talk about that with other wide receivers, where I've said before, I don't know if they're strong enough to win against those type of cornerbacks in the NFL. Like Jahan Dotson, which I mentioned a minute ago, against a top cornerback, he's not going to be one of those guys. He's going to be a guy that burns people. He's not going to be a guy that's going to fight for the ball. T. Higgins is a guy that's going to fight for the ball. Jamar Chase has got a little bit of both. He's more of a burner, more of a fantastic route runner. He can win some of those battles down the field. T. Higgins is going to win more of those, in my opinion, though. So pro for him, like I mentioned ago, he's going to get lots of single coverage. I mean, this is a guy that's going to have a lot of one-on-one battles. And if we know that he can win those one-on-one battles the majority of the time, that's great. That's what we want. Con, though, there's going to be lots of mouths to feed there. We know that, right? You've got Jamar Chase. You've got Tyler Boyd. You've obviously got Higgins. You've got Joe Mixon. They brought in Hurst. So you're going to have guys that are going to allow Joe Burrow to spread the ball around. So with T. Higgins, the hope is that he does get a decent amount of volume. But if he doesn't, he's going to have to make the most of the targets he gets in any given game. And hey, being able to win down the field at a ridiculous amount, hey, that works. That's going to give us fantasy points. T. Higgins, for me, great opportunity this year. Chase Claypool, staying in the division, talking about Pittsburgh. Chase Claypool, 41 contested targets last year, which tied him for third in the league. Only caught 17 of those, though. So his catch percentage last year was 41.5% on those contested catches. Now, this was a guy, remember, that a lot of people coming out of the NFL draft said Chase Claypool would be better served moving to tight end, okay? There was some questions about whether he was strong enough to win down the field against top cornerbacks, if he was fast enough, if he was quick enough. And so far in his NFL career, he's shown that he can do those things. And looking at it here, 17 contested catches last year on his 41 targets, giving him a 41% opportunity. We would like to see that go up a little bit, especially considering the fact that he's not the number one. When you take a look at what Chase Claypool has done, one thing that we have to keep in mind here is of those catches and targets, we don't know how many of those were actually catchable. Just because Ben Roethlisberger was targeting him down the field last year does not mean that it was a catchable target. So this year with Kenny Pickett, Mitchell Trubisky, yes, I don't fully believe in either of them, okay? Not this year anyway. Pickett, as he gets a little, as he gets into the system, grows a little bit, I think he can be a good NFL quarterback. I don't think he's going to be Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow, Kyler Murray. He's not going to be these guys that have come into the league and just absolutely dominated from day one. He's going to take some time. So could these numbers for Chase Claypool go up this year? I do believe the efficiency could go up. If we can still get him around 40 contested targets this year, I think we get a little bit closer to that 50% catch percentage. I do believe that with a better quarterback that can go down the field a little bit better, that is going to help Chase Claypool a lot. His pro, he's not the number one. He's not going to have the number one coverage on this team. Deontay Johnson more than likely will every single time. And they brought in another wide receiver. Now, from a standpoint of just pure football, didn't love the way that Pittsburgh drafted. Yes, they lost some wide receivers. I felt like there's a couple of other things that they could do to help their team out just a little bit more. But, and Chase Claypool was actually the one to announce the draft pick of Pickens. But having Pickens in the slot now, Najee Harris, Pat Muth at tight end, there's going to be so many weapons around him that not being the number one with Deontay Johnson more than likely being in the number one on the other side, again, this is a situation where teams are going to have to keep an eye on everybody. Now, if Pickett or Trubisky, either of those guys, are efficient and play well and can go down the field, that's great for Chase Claypool. But if we get into another dink and dunk offense for Pittsburgh, we're going to see inconsistent performances from Chase Claypool. That is going to be a little bit of an issue. With the addition of George Pickens, with a potential breakout of Pat Freiermuth coming up, if they're having trouble going down the field, I could see Chase Claypool's production becoming almost non-existent this year because they're just going to be getting them to these weapons that can win on those shorter routes. Yes, they'll try to go down the field every once in a while just to keep a defense honest, but it's not going to be enough for Chase Claypool. So there are some concerns about him. One of the best going down the field last year, Mike Williams, a contested catch percentage of over 51%. He had 41 contested targets down the field, which tied for third in the NFL. He caught 21 of those, which was second in the NFL. This is a great offense. You got Justin Herbert at the helm. You know that. You've got Keenan Allen there. You've got Austin Eckler in the backfield. You've got guys all over the place that can win. Nobody does a good enough job about talking about the other wide receivers. When we talk about the Los Angeles Chargers, everybody talks about Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, right? This draft season, Chargers fans were like, oh, we need another wide receiver. And I kept saying over and over, why? You've got Jalen Guyton and you've got Josh Palmer. Don't forget about those guys. Both of those are good wide receivers. Now, this is what I want to see from Mike Williams, okay? This is what I want to see from Mike Williams this year. I want them to go back to utilizing him the way that they did last year. If you look at the tape last year through the first quarter of the season or so, when Mike Williams was having his best part of the season, He was being utilized everywhere. He was being utilized out of the slot. He was being utilized out wide. He was being utilized on those short routes, just a few yards past the line of scrimmage, and the intermediate routes and down the field. He was being utilized everywhere. We know Mike Williams can win down the field. He has his entire career. He's always been a big play guy. But last year, they expanded the route tree for him, and he did well, which allowed him to become a top fantasy asset. But then, as the season wore on, they got away from it. He went back to the outside, and they just used him as that deep threat, that vertical stretcher guy, and he started to just fall off at that point. I need to see more. I need to see more from him. Utilize him better. You have plenty of options there with Jalen Guyton and Josh Palmer. Put Guyton on the outside and rotate Mike Williams and Keenan Allen. Keep the defense on their toes. That would be perfect. That's what we need to see. But we do know Mike Williams, big, strong, wide receiver. He's going to win a majority of those balls that come his way. Next guy. And I don't think many of you are going to be prepared for the name that's going to pop up here in just a second. But here we are with it. It's Jacoby Myers from the New England Patriots. 29 contested targets last year, 10th in the NFL. He caught 20 of those, third in the NFL, for a 69% contested catch rate. That is by far the highest among wide receivers with that many catches. The dude just went and got it last year. And nobody talked about it. The problem is because he just doesn't score. For some reason, Jacoby Myers, he can't score. He can't score. He's allergic to it. He gets towards the end zone, he starts to sneeze, can't see the football anymore. Now he's missing out on those opportunities. Jacoby Myers is a guy that can go get it. And now that they've added Devontae Parker on the outside, he won't need to be that wide receiver one anymore. I like that. I like that for Myers because too many times last year it felt like they needed to rely on Myers. And Myers isn't a wide receiver one. He's a wide receiver two. So if Devontae Parker can help take some of that pressure off, Jacoby Myers getting himself and potentially some one-on-one work with the cornerback too down the field. Maybe they do put him in the slot a little bit, move him around. We talked about that in another video as well. Get him moved around a little bit and allow him to work on some of those lesser cornerbacks. It's going to put him in a good position to win. The problem is, though, with this offense, it's not a big-time offense. We saw it last year, right? I mean, they're willing to throw the ball less than 10 times a game. Mac Jones, as of right now, I don't know if he's going to take that step forward. He could, 100% he could, and I'm not saying he can't. I'm just saying, are they going to let him? Are they physically going to let Mac Jones become the guy? Are they going to let him become that guy that's going to throw the football, that's going to control the offense, allow him to take shots down the field? If they don't, yes, Jacoby Myers is going to do well in these situations, but he's not going to have the volume to back it up. Talked about Carson Wentz a little bit ago, right? Here's his guy from last year, Michael Pittman. 28 contested targets last year, 11th in the NFL, but he caught 18 of those 28 contested targets. That tied him for fourth and gave him a catch percentage of 64.3%. Is Wentz to Ryan going to be better? I believe so. I believe that Ryan will end up being an upgrade from Carson Wentz. Yes, Ryan getting a little bit up there in age, but he's getting a fresh start now. He's getting a better offensive line. He's getting a better running back to help take the pressure off. He's got Michael Pittman there. I think you're going to see a good connection between Ryan and Pittman. And Pittman is going to reward him. If Ryan can lock in with Pittman and really focus up on being that type of tandem, that type of connection, Pittman's going to reward him because even if that relationship is a little bit off to begin with, maybe Ryan isn't quite in sync with Pittman to start the year, then at that point, you're going to be looking at Pittman being able to win some of those catches that maybe it is a little bit high. Maybe it's a little too out in front, a little bit too behind. He is going to fight for those catches, and that is what we want to see from our wide receivers. It's going to be a run-first offense, though, and Michael Pittman is going to get I mean, he's going to be the wide receiver 1. He is going to get the looks. And as of right now, they could potentially double team him a little bit more than we would like to see. Right now, you've got Alec Pierce. You've got a Paris Campbell that just hasn't been able to stay healthy in his career. A Kiki, Do You Love Me QT, Mike Strachan. I mean, you've got guys that are not game changers, right? You've lost some weapons at the tight end position as well with who you've let go. You've got Mo Alley Cox, Jack Mother and Doyle. Sorry, I had to look at something real quick on the depth chart. I saw Joe and I said Joe. No, that's not it. Jack Mother and Doyle, Mo Cox, Mo Problems. All right. Jack Doyle obviously being gone. You've got Mo Alley Cox there, but he hasn't been a guy that's, drawn too much attention over the course of his career. So Pittman's, outside of Jonathan Taylor, Pittman is going to be the focal point of that offense, and this is going to be a run-first offense. So the volume is going to be there, but how good is that volume going to be? If he can keep up these contested target numbers and contested catches numbers, it could be good, because even if he's double-teamed or facing tough coverage, he could still win a majority of the time. Listen. You're never going to be able to get me to quit Donovan Peoples-Jones. I know he's not the sexiest name. I know he's not the best name. He's never going to be a top-tier producer. But unfortunately, just having Shea Patterson as your quarterback in college doesn't really help you translate a whole lot to the NFL. All right? So Donovan Peoples-Jones, unfortunately, wasn't getting any big looks coming out of college because he didn't have the production. But he didn't have the production because he didn't have a quarterback. Because Shea Patterson is garbage. I mean, dude can't even hold on to a starting job in the USFL. So, I mean, come on. Shea Patterson just killed Donovan Peoples-Jones in college. But now Donovan Peoples-Jones gets to move on from Baker Mayfield to Deshaun Watson. He gets an upgrade at quarterback. That's huge for Donovan Peoples-Jones, especially winning down the field with one of the highest catch percentages of contested targets last year at 69.6%. He only had 23 contested targets last year, which was 24th in the NFL, but he caught 16 of those, which was tied for 7th. Donovan Peoples-Jones can win down the field. He can do it. We've seen the big plays from him before. And now we get Deshaun Watson, and now we get Amari Cooper on the other side. Oh, baby. Sign me up for some DPJ big-time games this year. Now, that's, again, contingent on how often Deshaun Watson really plays. But Amari Cooper, Donovan Peoples-Jones. Oh, and on top of it, you've got David Bell in the slot now, or Anthony Schwartz. David Bell could be very, 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 very overlooked in the slot. But Donovan Peoples-Jones on the outside, I think, is going to be even overlooked even more. I mean, when we get later into fantasy football drafts, Donovan Peoples-Jones is a guy that I want to have on my roster as many times as possible. Because if Deshaun Watson let's say on a per game basis when Deshaun Watson plays, I could see Donovan Peoples-Jones locking in as potential wide receiver 3 with some wide receiver 2 upside. I think he's even going to have some wide receiver 1 weeks throughout the year. He's not a guy that's going to be a play every single week. He's not going to be a guy that you're going to be able to start and just throw in your lineup and leave him there. You're going to have to play the matchups. You're going to have to put him in some better matchups, but he is a guy that is absolutely going to help win next year. Oh man, I like the potential for Donovan Peoples-Jones along with Deshaun Watson. And again, really the con here is just how long for Watson. How long is that suspension going to potentially be? The longer it is, the less the value goes down for Donovan Peoples-Jones. But there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Hopefully you enjoyed another wide receiver video breaking down contested catches and what it means for wide receivers. Gave you a look at several of the guys, pros and cons for each of them. Are we targeting them? What could be their floors? What could be their ceilings? Make sure you hit that like button for me, and let's give away another draft guide, all right? If this video gets 650 likes, I'm going to choose someone from the comments down below that does, what should we do? Hashtag must have. Hashtag must have. Who is the one late round wide receiver that you want to leave your draft with? A guy that you don't think is on the radar of other people. Maybe somebody that you feel like, hey, this is my guy. No one's really talking about him. This is who I want to have. A late, deep sleeper type of guy, a must-have for you that you've got circled that when you get to the end of your fantasy football drafts, you want to make sure that you walk away with. So 650 likes. I'm going to choose somebody, just one person, who does that hashtag with their pick down in the comments, but make sure you hit the like button and subscribe here to the Fantasy Headliners if you are new. I'm going to get out of here, though. Now, everybody stay safe and healthy, and I'll catch you all on the next episode of the Fantasy Headliners.
Analytics off the chain, other channels not the same. Jake and Kyle, you know the name. Headliner Nation, we running the game. Y'all stuck on third down. Your content's plain Jane. Headliners on top now. We gonna move and change. Podcast off the rip. Draft guide, so legit. Fantasy world, our game tight. You know we about that chub life. Stuck in a rut and you need some motivation. Head to the channel for this Headliner Nation.
I'm a headliner.